Right, if you've just joined us, we're busy talking about transport issues, the Road Accident Benefit Scheme, which is on the horizon, Road Accident Fund, the transformation that's taking place there, and also road safety. How can we reduce the carnage on our roads? And this is the UN decade for improving road safety. So this is a global phenomenon, a global problem, and perhaps the lessons that we can learn from other parts of the world. We'll be asking Minister that question in a short while. But just before the break, a question was asked about the synergy of RAF benefits with other programs of government so that there isn't overlap or wastage. And Dr. Watson was just about to answer that question.
There is work on a comprehensive social security system. So we're trying to synchronize those benefits across health, social development, SASSA, UIF, COIDA, as well as the RAF. The limits proposed in RABs have been consulted with the different departments, and the short answer really is that the idea is you will have standard benefits going forward. More importantly, you want to prevent double dipping. So you get somebody typically who gets a big payout from the RAF at the moment. They use the money on things other than rehabilitation. After a year or so, the money is depleted. They now become dependent on the state for grant, health for services, the RAF for ongoing care, and they attempt to access some of the Department of Labor benefits. You get a man, I've seen a man as an example, who has crutches from 3 different state institutions after having been paid out. So the need to synchronize is not only to ensure commonality, but also to prevent double and triple dipping, which you see.
One thing I want to understand, and I think I understand the humanity of this no-fault system that you're trying to implement, but we've got so much carnage on the road, and it seems to me, and I'm trying to work this out, and maybe you can explain it to me. I get into my car, I'm drunk, and I cause an accident. And yet I can draw funds from this road accident fund, this RABs, if I get injured, by something that I've caused. I should be going to jail rather than drawing on taxpayers' money.
We have been engaging with the Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice, through their different agencies, are also working on a response for us, because we believe that it is important that the perpetrators or the people responsible for the crashes must be held responsible. But at the same time, we are very much conscious of the fact that there are those that are not necessarily directly responsible for the crash, probably because you have a vehicle that is not roadworthy and all those type of things that belongs to a fleet management company and all others. But we believe that our magistrates in South Africa have been really working against the efforts of the Road Traffic Management Corporation as well as the Road Traffic Infringement Agency. When people are fined on the road for speeding and for drunken driving and all these other transgressions, then they are given lighter penalties. For example, a person is fined 10,000 rand, and then they go and reduce it to about 200 rand. So we're engaging with regard to that. The Department of Health has also come to the party to make sure that they can help us process the blood tests, especially for drunken driving or those who are driving under the influence. That would also help us to be able to get to prosecution and ultimately penalizing those who are directly responsible. So I would want to say, whilst the issue that RAPS will be addressing is primarily to address the gap that has been created, like the example that he made about the rich getting more benefits as opposed to the poorest of the poor, a gardener vis-a-vis a child of a well-to-do family, where the life of the gardener is not even equal to the life of that particular child. So that is what we would want to also address, without necessarily removing the aspect of keeping people responsible for their actions. The CEO of Road Traffic Management Corporation did indicate that road safety is everybody's responsibility. And I want to say we thank our artists as well as the soccer players who have offered themselves to be able to be road safety ambassadors. And we're actually recruiting more, because when they speak, people actually listen. The fact that our young people, 77,000 young people perishing on in South Africa because of different reasons, and 30% of that being unnatural deaths, means that we've got a challenge of drunken driving, we've got a challenge of texting and driving, or the distractions that young people get involved in. So we are also busy addressing those particular aspects. But we're saying that the issue that RAPS wants to address is the fact that right now you spend so much money under a road accident fund, as well as the other probably victims of crashes, trying to prove who is at fault when people are actually getting more and more destitute and you can't intervene. And that is what we are trying to remove. Not necessarily removing the individual citizens' responsibility to make it possible that we are safe on our roads.
Right.
South Africa is one of the countries in the top 10 with the most advanced road network, but also we've got the biggest network in the I would say in the continent. We've got more than 11 million vehicles with less than 20,000 law enforcement officers. That is why we have taken a decision to increase our law enforcement officer, but also to try and work hard as the traffic fraternity in South Africa to create a uniform traffic law enforcement system so that you can be able to address the issues that you say in one municipality you find taxi drivers or motorists behaving in a very reckless way, and yet you have probably the national or provincial traffic police not being able to intervene. We're trying to create uniformity at that level, but we're also trying to make sure that we can address the constitutional imperative of making sure that traffic law enforcement also become part of the broader policing system, so that you don't say police when they see road transgressions, they say that is not our domain, and that is part of the work that we're doing.
All right, I'm going to come to you, Advocate Msibi. You saw the picture just before the break of a car that's obviously not roadworthy, and I can't believe that a traffic officer hadn't seen that and stopped this thing moving around.
Well, Peter, you're quite right. We have a multi-pronged approach to deal with such issues, but the root cause there too is the fact that it's the driver himself, but also at our DLTCs, at the testing stations, we have fraudulent activities taking place. I need just to pause. Just yesterday, there was an arrest in Kronstadt of our face value documents, which then ensures that people manufacture licenses, driver's licenses, roadworthy certificates, without the car having been at the testing station. So one of the issues that we're supposed to be dealing with is to deal vigilantly with our DLTCs. We have appointed a team that is unbeknown to everybody to monitor our testing stations, to monitor the driving schools, because one of the issues that we have not dealt with is the fact that out of the 11 million drivers, 50% there too take their driver's license on EC and EC1, commonly known as Code 10 and Code 11. Yet on our roads, we have those that are on Code 8 who cannot even handle the motor vehicle at the time that they've taken the driver's licenses. But you have asked about this question of this vehicle that is glaringly unroadworthy. Where has it gone past? It has gone past the traffic officers. That comes to a level of corruption. But corruption must be understood in multi-pronged. There's a corruptor and a corruptee. The drivers themselves, who are frequently corrupting our law enforcers, must also take the responsibility. And Minister has spoken about the issue of the partnership with Department of Justice. That's what we want to deal with these issues, because at most instances, the drivers that are giving money to our law enforcers are never prosecuted. Now we want to set an example that they too be prosecuted, because in terms of the Corruption Act, we can prosecute both of them. But
you're saying corrupting our officers as if they have no choice.
Yes. They have a choice.
Yes.
Because in this instance, when a traffic officer stops you and doesn't offer you a summons, and you then give something to the traffic officer, you have the responsibility to report them. Because in terms of the Act, we are also participating in the commission of an offense. That's one of the issues that we must deal with. But it is important to mention this. We have also partnered with the taxi industry. Currently, the Hlokomela program which is intended to ensure that from the public transport perspective, no taxi leaves the taxi rank if it's unroadworthy. We'll also be training those members who are participating in Hlokomela to undergo a training in relation to some basic courses on traffic to understand what is the state of a roadworthy vehicle. But to the public at such, part of the 11 million people that are drivers, not everybody is a driver, is a legitimate driver. We'll then be going to a process where we need to verify who are the people that are legitimate drivers. And indeed, the frequent testing of our drivers will assist us, as well as the frequent training of the cars.
You've talked about the taxi drivers, and we can't have a conversation without them because just the sheer number of taxis that are out there. And I've got to be honest with you, and maybe I'll get into trouble, but I am pleasantly shocked and surprised if a taxi driver waits for a green light. I'm in awe when I see that happening.
Well, Peter, we need not paint everybody with the same brush. There are those taxi drivers who are law unto themselves. There are those taxi drivers who keep to the latter part of the law. But those that are, of course, contravening our laws, those that are driving parallel to the traffic flow, we are also dealing decisively with them. But remember, one of the interventions that government has come with, it's in relation to the demerit point system, which ARTO is intended to deal with those issues. As we roll that process out, we'll also be reading our system out of those drivers that are not, of course, law-abiding drivers and deal decisively with them. Let me lash on what the minister has also talked about in terms of the justice system, where the fines should be excessive so that people must feel the fine. Currently, the system cannot handle the number of traffic fines that we have. There might be a consideration, we're in constant consultation with the Department of Justice, whether shouldn't we have dedicated traffic courts that will be dealing with these traffic fines on daily basis and ensure that we really deal with the root elements that are not abiding with the law.
I wish you the best of luck with that one, sir, because... All right, let's go to table number 9, where we'll find Fusi Magasan.
Morning, Minister. Morning, Minister. Morning, South Africa. Advocate Msibi, I think this is directed to you. What do you think of irresponsible statements that are made by insurances on our tellies of saying when you are drunk, they are there for you to bail you out? And Minister, I want to thank you for the child seat that you introduced. Thank you.
Advocate.
Okay, so we're getting these adverts, and I've received some tweets as well, and it's random. You might have been in an accident. Call us now. We'll get money for you from the Road Accident Fund. What do you think about these unscrupulous, I wouldn't say, Let's start with your question that's been pointed to you.
Well, in relation to the statement that has been made, those are irresponsible statements that encourages lawlessness in our country. But to that extent, we're also requesting Department of Justice to reclassify drunken driving to be one of the within Schedule 5 or Schedule 6, so that people don't access immediate bail, so that they can spend about 7 days in the police cells or in custody while we're dealing with the processes, as the minister has also spoken about the issue of partnering with the Department of Health to ensure that the results of the blood test are easily obtainable so as to decisively deal with these people, because the issue is whether you have a lawyer or not. The point is, it's an irresponsible and unacceptable behavior that we must encourage our people to indulge into liquor and near drive on our roads.
Okay, Dr. Watson, if you could add, because we're also getting, when there's an accident, I don't know where these tow trucks come from, but I'm starting to get a sense that some of our lawyers are behaving in the same way. You're in a state in hospital, and suddenly somebody just appears from nowhere and is asking you to sign documents and so on and so forth, and you're not even in the right frame of mind at that stage. What are we doing about this kind of pressure that's coming from the legal fraternity?
Look, I wouldn't put it only on the heads of the legal fraternity. I mean, I do get a lot of SMSs saying, save legal costs, SMS back, which is relevant to my work. But it's touting. Where there's lawyers, we've seen doctors, we've seen hospital administrators, ambulance drivers, nurses, hospital clerks, tow truck drivers. We've seen, unfortunately, we've even seen RAF employees. It really shows you that the current accident compensation system has centered around this money-making scheme. Let's find the most injured, let's find as many injured, let's write it up, let's get a cut. And that, I think, is something that just has to end. It's sick. I've seen people who have their IDs taken, almost repossessed, by touts who will only let them get it back when they sign the documents. And I think that really is preying on the vulnerable. As you rightfully say, the person at that point of time is in a state of shock. Let's not do that. That can't be the society we are. So to change that, I think, is good. Our forensic team is on it.
The big thing, I guess, is will we need lawyers under robes? Because
before we get to that point, Peter, I also believe that it's important that we alert our people that when they are in the situation that Eugene has just explained, when they are most vulnerable, they shouldn't allow themselves to sign any papers. The Road Accident Fund, as we speak, has got offices in all 9 provinces. We also have officers in hospitals who are directly working with the Road Accident Fund. So you don't need anybody to come and offer you support from outside. We're also dealing with the Department of Health to also make sure that we minimize the touts that are there in the hospital. Because we know, like he indicated, that there are ambulance drivers or EMS people who will notify the legal fraternity or the other institutions to say that there's been a gruesome crash and there would be people that would need your support. They take people's ID numbers and all that. It just shows how greed has seeped through society to an extent where we become so insensitive that at the time when people are most vulnerable, when they need support and motivation to be able to hang on, we are actually looking at them as a source of income, because the touts will be paid definitely a particular type of fee. So we're saying the Road Accident Fund is available. We've got offices in all 9 provinces. The Road Accident Fund has also introduced a very innovative system where they go out into the community to be able to engage with people who have been victims of road crashes. So you don't need a go-between, you don't need an intermediary. We're also saying that there is support from our municipalities. If they don't know where they should go to, they should be able to get that type of information from our municipalities. So we are just appealing to society to say, can we have a heart? Can we understand that when people are in pain, they shouldn't be doing this? We have heard of instances where people would be at home and a legal representative would come to their homes to say, we have heard that you are injured in this way and this way, we can then help you. But those people who are the poorest of the poor, who needs the type of support, doesn't get the type of support. So we are also saying that it is also worrying to find that people actually target those that they know they would get a lot of revenue from, as opposed to those that would need necessarily this type of support at any given time.
All right. Table 22, we've got Advocate Kaji. Table 22, Advocate Kaji.
My question is addressed to the Honorable Minister as well as Dr. Watson. I'm a member of an organization called Advocates for Transformation. Many members who belong to this Advocates for Transformation rely almost solely on the Road Accident Fund as their livelihood because of the lack of transformation in the broader legal fraternity. These people have not been paid, many of them, for many, many months. They are more often at the receiving end of the anger of judges in court. They are the ones who try and save the Road Accident Fund money day in, day out. With this benefit scheme, these people will it seems to be without any source of income. The second aspect is we know that there are very many lawyers, and I know this by experience, who are out there to rub off the system, and and also to defraud their own clients out of money. But there are also lots of attorneys out there who perform a very valuable service, and without their intervention, many claimants would not get their due, which they are entitled to. So without this intervention, is there not a danger that people out there, poor people, might not get their proper compensation? Thank you.
Okay, so there's a few levels to discuss.
Thanks. Look, I think the advocate has really put forward a set of honest questions, which I appreciate. The first one deals with money. As the RAF, we get paid a few levies, 2 billion rand. About 3 years ago, the institution paid 1 billion rand a month. Everybody, including the fraternity the advocate represents, said, no, RAF, deliver services, perform, come on, pull up your socks. So we do this. We start paying 2 billion rand a month, knowing we're getting 2 billion rand in. Nobody says, hey, RAF, thank you very much, you've doubled payments, congratulations, your turnaround is working. The problem kicks in when the RAF continues to improve and we prepare almost 3 billion. But our income is still 2 billion. And we owe people the balance of what they know is available. Unfortunately, the advocates don't work directly for the RAF. We pay them through attorneys. It's not always easy for attorneys who are having to wait for all these additional monies to come in, and they may not be in turn paying their creditors, which is a difficulty, and we've engaged the institution. There is no short answer. We don't determine how much money we get. The extra 50 cents the Minister of Finance and his team is here gave us earlier in the year, we'll see an extra 10 billion rand. But quite frankly, it isn't enough and it's come a little late, but we will have to manage it. The second point which the advocate speaks about is a real issue. There are attorneys, there are legal representatives who have made their living from the RAF as we know it. There are some normal, good professionals who are doing work. That's a fact. They are bad apples. But the reality is, those professionals, honestly, because no policy is perfect, those professionals represent a subsector of the 5 million working people in South Africa. Within those 5 million people who work, you have professionals. Within the professionals, you have lawyers. Within the lawyers, you have third-party specialists like those the advocate is talking about. But you've got 15 million people who contribute to the fuel levy. They are poor. Nobody speaks for them. Now, when you set policy, and I assume this is what happened in 2002, do you say, for the interests of a few professionals who could ply their trade somewhere else, we will continue to tell 45% of our population, you are good enough to contribute, but not good enough to benefit? That, unfortunately, is a difficulty. The comfort I can give the advocate and the fraternity he speaks on behalf of is that when the RAF stops, it's not a lights off immediately. The liability of 115 billion rand we talk about is in fact the tail end that will run off. So when RABS comes into play, the fraternity needs to plan how they look at alternative sources of revenue, alternative business practices, whilst that 115 billion rand is monetized, which I think is a fair wind down.
Won't people need lawyers in RABS? Is that the idea?
No, I think at the moment, it's not obligatory that you come to the RAF directly. You can use an intermediary, and I think it's fine. You make the election. But because you're moving to RABS, it's social security. You've got rules, you've got formula, you've got defined benefits. You know, to assume a public entity won't act in the best interests of claimants, I think is wrong. To consider us the judge and the jury and the executioner, I think is a flawed argument, because in public schools today, you have teachers who teach, set the exam, mark the paper, and fail the student. You have doctors who diagnose and treat and discharge. You've got Social Security that assesses your application, applies a means test. You have DOH that applies a means test. To imply inherently that this particular public entity will not act in the best interests of claimants is flawed. But the most important thing, despite all I have to say, in 3 years, you've seen direct claimants, the ones, people who come to us directly, grow to 30%. If society had no confidence in us, if they felt we are bamboozling them, it wouldn't grow. And it's a good thing. It's representative of what you see in government at the moment. There are public sector employees who are working, and it's a good thing.
Okay, all right. Luanda Thomas tweets Minister and says, I'd like to ask Minister about the rollout of the BR systems like My City and Go George in other cities like Polokwane.
We've got 13 cities in South Africa that are part of this IRPTN, which is the Integrated Rapid Public Transport Network. And 4 of them have already gone live. They are operational. And we believe that very soon we would be having the others, because they are at different stages of implementation. You would know that as a national department, we give municipalities money to put out the infrastructure, and that infrastructure is to make it possible that we can have a mindset change of our people moving from using their own individual vehicles to using public transport. We are happy that Gauteng has gone into phase 2, and we have seen the launch of Arieng in, not Gauteng, Johannesburg, Arieng in Pretoria, and the conceptual work is being done at Ekurhuleni. We know that the work around eThekwini with Go Durban is also ongoing. We've seen a beautiful model also in George, where we even have the disability friendly, which is what we call the universally accessible type of transport, where the platform and the bus platform and the bus is interlinked. We believe that these 13 cities would help us to be able to arrive at a point where we can safely, at the end, when we do the lessons from the work that we have already done now, can be able to say we can roll out the network throughout the country. We've seen the good work that the 210 buses with the stops and terminuses that are being done in Rustenburg. This is very exciting times, because we believe this rapid bus transit system is actually also going to be rolled out into the townships, so as to make it possible that people have got a choice. And our accelerated public transport turnaround strategy is actually speaking to this particular initiative.
Right. You've mentioned buses. PUTCO has decided that there's some areas that it can't carry on servicing now because it's just not cost effective for them. Your comments on that, and how do we manage the commuters?
There's about 25,000 people affected in the routes that PUTCO has withdrawn from. And we are happy to indicate that Autopax, which is a PRASA subsidiary, would be intervening in that particular space as per the agreement with the Gauteng Department of Roads and Transport, so as to make it possible that those people do have the necessary means to get to their point of employment or school or whatever area they would want to go to. I just want to appeal to the people in those corridors today. This is the first day where Autopax would be coming into that particular corridor, and you would know that Autopax, as part of the PRASA stable, has been doing long distance type of transportation. So they would still have to, I mean, anything that you start has got its teething problems. I have seen and heard this morning people actually complaining, but we're also happy that many of the people have made the choice also to go to the taxis, and we believe at the end of the week and end of this month, the Gauteng department together with PRASA would have resolved the teething challenges and make sure that the system becomes a smooth sailing.
All right. I'm just hearing now that today's day one, that there's intimidation taking place, particularly in Pretoria, where people are being intimidated not to catch, in Mamelodi actually, not to get onto these new buses because, and I'm not sure whether the pressure is coming from PUTCO employees or wherever it's coming from, but they're being intimidated not to take these new buses.
We'll have to investigate that and speak to the commuter associations as well as to the commuters themselves, because it is important that they realize that this intervention is to make sure that whilst PUTCO and whatever operator is engaging with government with regard to the subsidy issues, the services are not necessarily interrupted. We know there will be an element of inconvenience, like I indicated. This is the beginning of this particular intervention, and it would necessarily have particular challenges, and I would definitely have to engage with regard to that. The MEC is also here to MEC Vadi and the other MECs from other provinces, Free State and Mpumalanga, because the issue of buses and bus subsidies is not only affecting Gauteng, it is a national problem.
Issue.
On the 6th of May, we had a meeting of MINMEC where we discussed the particular issue with the MECs to say what is it that we can do to intervene in this particular space whilst we are still engaging with National Treasury.
All right, well, let's go to MEC. Let's just get a comment from you. MEC Vadi, if you could just stand up so we can get a microphone to you. So, Mamelodi's under pressure right now.
Thank you very
What
much,
are you gonna do?
Peter. Yes, I think we've had reports from this morning that about 50 taxi operators have blockaded the depot, and they are preventing Autopex buses from leaving the depot and ferrying the commuters. I must say this kind of conduct is totally unacceptable. It's wrong, and it's wrong. I mean, people have a choice. We've done everything possible from our side, together with Autopex, to provide a seamless and continuous service to people. PATCO is within its right to make a business decision to cancel its contracts. We don't have a problem with that. We've done everything we could do to make sure that there's continuity of services. But the conduct of some of the taxi people out there in Mamelodi is unacceptable, and we have to condemn it.
So what are you going to do?
Well, I think I've just been getting reports all the time now. The police are on the scene. We will remove these taxi operators. They are making claims that the department has made a commitment to them that this contract will be given to them exclusively. Now, my department and myself, we are governed by the PFMA. We're not in the business of dishing out contracts, and we're less inclined to give out contracts when we are blackmailed.
All right. And is there anybody here who represents the taxi industry that could perhaps comment?
The president of Santaco.
Yes. If you could please get a microphone. You've heard the allegations. All right. So if you could just identify yourself for our viewers. Okay, Mr. Tabos, if you could identify yourselves for our viewers. And then if you could just comment on some of the things that you've heard, but particularly let's start with this one. We're being held to ransom, it seems, by taxi drivers today.
I've sent a team of my operators to go and investigate what is taking place there, and I think I will get the report. But leaving this occasion here, I will be going to Mamelodi to go and observe what is happening there, and I believe that I've got a team which is very strong enough to talk to the operators, if it is operators, and if it is drivers also, they will talk to them. But we must remember that there are people, Minister, who are not taxi operators, who are, I don't even know how people call them illegal taxi operators. I would call them criminals. Those people are the ones at many occasions who get into situations of that nature. But let me come to this one of the subsidy, Minister. I think chickens have come home to roast. I want to indicate, Minister, that we have been asking from government that give us equal platform. You see now, the buses cannot operate without subsidy. This is an indication that government has been actually directing its funds to the wrong people. We have been convinced. I think the Statistician General and Statistics South Africa have proved that the taxi is a transport of choice to the majority. But let me also, in the same breath, indicate that as a taxi industry, we are supporting both RTMC and the Road Accident Fund with their endeavors to see, firstly, carnages reduced from our roads, and secondly, from the Road Accident Fund, in the direct claimant of the claimants, We are saying that it has been a long time where some of these unscrupulous people, which are calling themselves professionals, who have been really screwing our people. For instance, let me indicate this, that I was in the Eastern Cape, and I think I was with the minister at one stage, when we discovered that a person who was sitting on wheelchair, this poor person didn't have arms. We discovered that the road accident fund has paid 2.7 million rand. This particular person has only received 160,000 rand.
Yes.
That's why we say, as the taxi industry, the people mover in South Africa, we support the road accident benefit scheme, because it will benefit the beneficiaries or the victims of the accident.
All right.
Thank you very
Now,
much.
just before you sit down, and I think Minister's noted your question, the one question I have for you is, how do we get your drivers to drive better on our roads?
I think it's a fair question. I think it's a very fair question. I must indicate that we have started our own training academy, and besides the training academy, with the assistance which we are getting from the RTMC, and thank you, CEO Makhosini Msibi, for assisting us, that we are now able to educate drivers at the taxi rank. And I'm sure if we go to a few years' history, you would notice that our vehicles, when they leave the taxi ranks, they are inspected by the taxi operators themselves. We don't leave them to the traffic police. We say, as a taxi industry, we are doing this business and we must ensure that we give the best service to the community.
But does it take training not to go through a red light?
You see, Peter, I think sometimes we are exaggerating on some of these things. No, give me a chance, Peter. Let me, give me a chance. And why I'm saying this, I am not going to deny that there are taxi drivers whose behavior is very much uncalled. But what we should also recognize is that there is improvement which is taking place within the taxi industry, and we must give that improvement a chance. Thank you.
Okay, all right, Minister.
I think Mr. Dipuo knows exactly where we are with regard to the engagements related to the subsidy for the commuter as opposed to for the operator. But you would know any decision that we make needs to be supported by the budget and the accelerated public transport turnaround strategy also addresses those particular issues. So I would appeal to Mr. Dipuo to say, can he bear with us? He knows that there's engagements and he knows exactly where we are with regard to the process. I know it is a bit discouraging for them because of the length of time it will take, but truly speaking, we can't implement something when we don't have the resources to implement that, and we're working together with them.
Okay.
The other thing that I thought we need to address is the issue of the perception that the road accident fund is bankrupt. The CEO has indicated that they've got processed claims, and I would be one to stand here and say we applaud them for the work that they are doing to process the claims. What they have is claims that have been processed. So they are waiting for the money to pay out those people. And we are saying to our people who know that they have received indications that their claims have been processed, we're just waiting for the money. And like Eugene indicated, the claims need something like 3 billion and what they get is about 2 billion. So we need to get more money so that we can be able to pay those particular people. But it's always good for somebody to know that my claim has been processed and approved and I'm just waiting waiting for the money.
Okay. Lungile is on table 23. If you could stand up and just say your name. I can't quite read your writing here. It's very neat, but I can't read it for some reason.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Lungile Mabekte. Yes, my question is directed to the Minister as well as RAF. It's with regard to Section 25. We talk about road safety. If you look at Section 25 of the Road Accident Fund Act, it provides for the Road Accident Fund to sue people who have caused accidents under certain circumstances. Now, my point is, with all the amendments that have been made 2003 and 2008, why is that not being amended to expand, to include people who are negligent, with gross negligence, if you want to limit it further, but you must allow. We see a lot of accidents on the road that are not necessarily caused by drunken driving, of which, of course, even drunken driving, I've never heard a case, road accident fine suing someone who has caused death or injuries because of drunken driving. So my point is, why is that section not being amended? Because my view is, when that section is amended, the road accident fund will be in a position to sue a lot of these people who are causing accidents and deaths. That will address the road safety. That's number one. Number two, it's not going to cost the road accident fund a lot of money, as currently the lawyers are costing the road accident fund, because the road accident fund can have a panel of attorneys on contingency basis to sue those people. Why is that not being done to save the public of South Africa a lot of money?
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds like a new revenue stream. Look, I think it's a good point. The emphasis of the question is around suing, though, and the origins of the RAF is in suing, because under the common law you would sue the wrongdoer for your loss. Therefore, something had to be done to protect people, because the average man just didn't have enough to pay for what they would be sued. So many decades ago, you have this fund or enterprise created. But the principal issue is, do we want to play in the realm of suing? And if you listen to the Road Accident Benefit Scheme information, there's a policy shift away from suing and from the punitive nature to creating something which provides support. Do I, however, think that people who have caused the accident should be accountable? On one hand, there's the criminal process, which our sister entity, the RTMC, DOT, and the DOJ would run. But I think at the moment, in the short term, it's something worth considering. I understand for the long run. But do you want to stand publicly and say, citizens, come to us for support? By the way, we are going to look for who amongst you has done something wrong so we can sue you for that action too. It becomes a little complicated, but I do think it's a good idea.
All right, whilst we're with you, Unati Grootboom says, do you have to be injured badly in an accident to get paid?
Yes, you do. Even under the current act, there's some limitations on how serious it has to be. The truth is, too open and you're prone to abuse, a lot of whiplash, a lot of sore necks, lots of pain and suffering. Unfortunately, based on the limited resources you have, the first decision is offer what you can afford. So seriousness does have to come into play.
Okay. Table number 21 is Mabila Matebula. Table 21.
Okay, thank you. I'm from the Railway Safety Regulator, and my question is directed to the Minister. A number of people who travel during Easter are pilgrims. And my question is, why don't we have a pilgrim train in South Africa like they have in Saudi Arabia? Thank you.
Why don't we?
Sorry. Pilgrim trains, so special trains at that time of the year. So let's say people have to go to Moria to lay on special trains for those commuters at that particular time.
Thank you very much for the question. I'm sure the gentleman would have heard about the investment that we are making in the rail passenger services sector to be able to make sure that we increase the flow of people to using a rail. We've already done a lot of investment. We are going to be building the factory. I'm sure you are fully aware, to build the trains locally. The first procurement will be more than 600 trains, in particular for the metro-related services, but equally so for the long-distance services. We've already tested the network together with Transnet, moving to Messina, but also from Kimberley to Mahikeng, from Kimberley to Bloemfontein, so that we can then be able to open up those networks. I'm sure many have already started seeing some of the trains started moving. The issue that is raising is a very progressive suggestion that we could consider those type of periods like September and Easter when there's pilgrimages. And I would believe working together with the church and making sure that we can move people probably to Park Station or Pretoria Station and then ferry them to that end. It can happen. But remember, it would then mean we should be having the requisite number of buses on the other end, especially from Polokwane to Moria or to whatever end. So we're still working on the modalities to make sure that we can increase the usage of rail services. But with regard to moving people from using the road to rail, we have already started the investment, and I'm sure you would have heard from the input by Transnet that also on the freight side, we would want to move the non-time sensitive freight to rail so that we can then be able to reduce the number of trucks on the road.
All right, you've talked about roads. Gormore says, what is Minister doing to ensure municipalities are fixing roads? Roads in Randfontein particularly are bad, but I think this is a question that can duplicate around the country.
We've got about 9 billion rand on a program that is funded nationally called Samba Sonke, which is the provincial road maintenance grant monies. 40% of it, we have said, must focus on dealing with the challenges related to potholes so that we can then reduce the problems that are caused by potholes. I know that through the MIG, which is the Municipal Infrastructure Grant, municipalities have also started focusing on making sure that the road network is improved. One of the 3 E's under the Road Safety Initiative is related to engineering. It means the condition of our roads, the way in which we build our roads should also lend itself to enhancing safety. In particular, creating space for pedestrians, creating space for motorists, for motorcyclists, as well as those who use the alternative non-motorized transport. We also have in our midst here Salga, which can also speak to what municipalities are doing to make it possible that they enhance the road conditions in their area.
Let's go straight to the horse's mouth then. Salga, where are we? If we could get a representative, why aren't your municipalities fixing your roads? Let's get a microphone to you.
He likes the discussion.
So if you could just identify yourself, the camera is right in front of you, and speak to your citizens.
No, municipalities are doing their best to fix their roads. Some of the challenges that we're having, especially with what the minister was talking about, the Municipal Infrastructure Grant at the moment funds capital projects. So what we're trying to do as Salga is to convince COCTA that MEEC also funds for maintenance. So at the moment you can't maintain the roads with MEEC. So as soon as we get those conditions of MEEC sorted out, then we'll have a good thing to go. Some of the things that we're doing with DOT is to say, in MEEC you can have MEEC funding 60% of the capital projects, and then the 40% funding maintenance. So I think we're doing a lot of work on that, and I think in the next financial year, 2016-17, I think we should be able to have changed those conditions.
Well, I hope your voters will see the improvements, because they're going to be making a decision next year about your future.
Peter, we also have the MECs from Northwest and Free State, as well as from Mpumalanga. They can also comment on what each province is doing.
All right. Okay. What I'm going to do, I just want to get this question from table 14, and then I'm going to get a few comments from our MECs. But on table 14 is Joel Molife. Joel, where are you? Table 14, if you could ask your question, because I think this is quite interesting, actually. Yeah. Joel Molife, and then we'll get some comments from our MECs.
Morning. My name is Joel Molefe. My question to the minister is, why don't you have a 24-hour transport system? Because introducing BRT, we have the How train, but it only operates until 9 o'clock, and most accidents they happen after 9. If, when you come from different clubs and places. So that's my question to you.
Okay, 24-hour bus service.
I think the MEC can also answer that, but there was a test that was done with the How train for 24-hour service, and they found that the demand was not necessarily equal to the services that they would want to provide. So I would believe that there's a lot of things that we need to take into consideration, the volumes of people and all those, but it's one of those that we're looking at, especially around the festive periods where people go out.
Okay, we're running out of time, so I'm going to have to ask you very last question. E-tolls. A very quick answer. This is definitely going ahead. People don't seem to want to pay, and what are you going to do about that?
The CEO of Central is here. He would also comment on that. I think the issue is, Peter, people are not saying they don't want to pay. They say they would want to know what are they paying for. And that is what we've been able to do. But also what the people have also raised is make the payment process easier and simpler for us to be able to understand. And the new dispensation, as pronounced by the Deputy President, is actually to make the implementation or the administration of the system easier for the people. We've done away with those multiple penalty systems.
This is something I'm sure
we have also reduced the cap to make it possible that people can budget in the month.
Time has run out, unfortunately, but we'll pick that up again in our next conversation, because I'm sure it's not going to go away in a hurry. But from us here in Fourways, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation via Twitter, to our audience here as well, and once again to our guests as well. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, and we certainly wish you luck with RABS and the transformation of RAF, and also getting our roads safer. Thank you very much indeed. All right, and from us, have a great day, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Peter. What an interesting conversation that you are having. And on a morning where there's a breaking news story, a developing news story from Pretoria, something that you mentioned, there is a tense standoff between taxi operators and auto pax bus drivers at the Mamelodi bus terminus east of Pretoria. The new bus operators are being prevented from ferrying commuters. Autopax has taken over some Gauteng routes which were previously operated by PATCO. PATCO terminated their services, saying the government subsidy was non-profitable. Police have been deployed to monitor the situation. Speaking earlier from today's New Age SABC